They imprisoned me. I was stuck in such a terrible place with all sorts of bad people. Did I really deserve to be stuck in such a place like this? What I considered is a sin and a crime, but is this what I really deserve? All these people are pressuring me to reveal the Father, but I just can't do this to him. There's no need to make another person suffer this kind of humiliation and punishment. They took me to a stage in the middle of town where I was forced to stand all in front of the town so that everybody could see this scarlet A on my chest. Looking through the crowd, I saw a familiar face, but I just kept my mouth shut and continued on with my punishment. They said that all I had to do was stand there, but I'm being forced to wear this scarlet A on my chest for the rest of my life as a sign and humiliation for my crime of adultery. After the grueling humiliation and suffering of the public shaming, I was led back into the prison. I was put in this dark room when I saw that familiar face again, the same face that I saw in the crowd that day. That man was my husband. He wanted to know who the father of my child was. What surprised me is that he was going by a different name. He was calling himself Roger Chillingsworth. I kept refusing to tell anyone the name of my lover, and my husband kept trying to make me drink this potion. I was reluctant at first, but I was reassured that it wasn't poison, because if it was, Roger wouldn't be able to carry out his revenge. My husband was intent on me not telling anybody of his identity. The way he looked, the evil grin on his face, it made me think he was some sort of devil. I'm worried. I think he'll stop at nothing to find my lover. How am I a young mother supposed to take care of this baby and deal with all of these situations going on at the same time? I was finally let out of prison, but I still have to wear this scarlet A on my chest for the rest of my life. I was told that I was free to leave Boston, but instead I decided to settle down in a cabin at the edge of the town. Despite people hating me, I'm still making a living from my sewing talents. My products are being used everywhere, all except for weddings. Although I am having success, I still feel very lonely. Practically everybody knows my story, and I'm constantly being avoided. I tried to do charity work to help better my name, but most of the time I just get shamed and insulted by the very people I'm helping. My child Pearl has been growing so much lately, I'm starting to worry about her. She's taking after me in her actions and attitude, and she's constantly getting into trouble. I worried that if she keeps this up, she'll suffer from this. I decided to tell Pearl my whole story. To my surprise, she was very accepting and understanding of the whole situation. After our conversation, I started to think that she might not be the very demon child that everybody says she is. I've decided to take a trip to the governor's home today. I had a pair of gloves that I needed to deliver to him. I also wanted to ask him a very important question. I've been hearing all these rumors that they are trying to take my daughter Pearl away from me. I wanted to know if the governor had any insight on whether or not it was true. On my way to see the governor, I ran into some kids who started attacking me by throwing mud at me. Pearl got very angry and managed to scare the children off. When we finally got to the governor's house, I was horrified when I saw my reflection from one of its suits of armor. I never realized just how much the scarlet letter dominates my appearance. These three men entered the room, and immediately I started teasing Pearl when they saw her. These men were Bellingham, Wilson, and my husband, Chillingworth. These men all start to detest my ability as a parent. They believe that I have not taught her well, and start to test Pearl. Pearl kept refusing to answer any questions, so I looked to Dimsdale for help. Dimsdale told them that Pearl is supposed to be a blessing and a curse sent from God. In the end, they let me keep Pearl. On my way out, I was invited to a witches' meeting. I would for sure have gone if I didn't have Pearl. At that point, I realized Pearl is a blessing for me and saves me from Satan's temptation. I've begun to fear about Mr. Dimsdale. He has become very sick, and my husband has been staying with him. At least, my husband is committed to his work. but I still don't trust him. I feel that he's going to do something poor to Mr. Dimsdale. It isn't just me either. Because of his lack of a past, people have grown suspicion and are coming to their conclusions. I've even heard some people calling him the devil. I was reassured later when I saw Mr. Dimsdale. He invited Pearl and I to join in his home, but Pearl noticed a figure in the distance. It was Chillingworth. Dimsdale then asked me what the true identity of Chillingworth was. I was torn between telling him, but in fear of what would happen to me, I kept my promise of silence. Pearl, however, whispered a bunch of nonsense in his ear, and it was as a punishment for not standing in public with me when I was shamed for my crime of adultery. Pearl is 7 years old now. I've worked my way more into society. Although I still have this A on my chest, people are beginning to think it stands for able and not adulterer. I feel guilty about keeping my husband's identity a secret to Mr. Dimsdale. Maybe I should just tell him, and he can find a way to keep me safe. I was thinking about informing Chillingworth of my plan to tell Arthur about his identity. When I was gathering plants and herbs with Pearl, I ran into Chillingworth. When I approached him, he almost started to mock me. He said he was hearing good things and that the council may remove the A on my chest. This is something only God can do. I told him that I think it was time for Mr. Dimsdale to learn about his true identity. From my conversation with him, I was almost positive that he knows Arthur is my lover. The look on his face was terrifying. He was the true embodiment of evil. I had begged him just to accept it and become a normal member of society. Chillingworth then told me that his revenge was my silence. I was finally through that whole conversation with Chillingworth. I was headed off to find Pearl when I realized that I truly hated Chillingworth, although it was a huge sin. When I finally found Pearl, she was playing in the middle of tide pools. Pearl was pretending to be a mermaid, and she had a slimy green A on her chest, made from eelgrass. I had a whole conversation with her about what the A actually meant, but I started to give up midway through, knowing that Pearl was just way too young to understand what I was trying to say. I was on my way to tell the minister the truth when Pearl started asking about a black man and his connection to my Scarlet letter. I then see Arthur in the distance. To my surprise, Pearl started talking to him about this black man. Arthur was curious too and started asking questions. I then snapped and said that there was no black man and my lover was the minister. While in the forest, I knew it was a safe place. I held Arthur's hand and we sat in a secluded spot. I started to tell him everything about my past and who Chillingworth really was. Then, Arthur suddenly snapped. He started to condemn me and blaming me for making him suffer. I couldn't bear this. I pulled Arthur close and begged for his forgiveness. Eventually, he forgave me. He realized that Chillingworth was way worse than both of us. Arthur was worried about Chillingworth exposing our identities, but I had a plan to escape. We would escape to Europe, where we could live as a family with Pearl. Energized with this new excitement, I was overjoyed and casted away my Scarlet letter. We were finally going to Europe. From my charity work, I grew to know a crew of a ship that was headed to England. Arthur was planning to do his final sermon before we left for Europe. There was another big public gathering, but this time of a shaming. It was a welcome to the new governor. All I could think about was leaving this place. I was so excited to finally be free and live together with my lover and child. I was shattered when I heard one of the sailors say that Chillingworth was joining us as a part of their party. They said that they were in need of a doctor on the ship. While listening to Dimsdale's sermon, he sounded better than ever. Chillingworth said that I had nothing to do with Dimsdale, and that I should only care for Pearl while on the ship. I suddenly realized that I was getting a cold glaze from everybody around me, not just people who knew my Scarlet letter. After preaching one of his best ever sermons, Dimsdale surprisingly called me and Pearl up to the stage. I was unsure what this was about, and I was shocked when he confessed his sins in front of the whole town. Dimsdale shocked everyone when he ripped off his jacket, revealing a scarlet A on his chest. The entire town was in shock, and Pearl gave Arthur a kiss. Arthur claimed that God, and only God, would give him his punishment. He told me goodbye, and then he just died. I decided after this that me and Pearl would leave Boston and just disappear. Later on, a year later, Chillingworth had died because he had no longer had a meaning in life. He left a large inheritance to my daughter Pearl. I was still heartbroken. The one person I had loved most had left me, and all the things that we planned to do were impossible to do now.